Welcome back to the Tiger Den. I'm Tiger, your resident dusty craftsman, and across the workbench from me, as usual, is Alex.
Ready and waiting. And Tiger, I have to say, I walked into the shop today and I didn't see any sawdust. I didn't smell wood glue. I smelled damp basement.
Yeah, that's the scent of a weekend lost to the plumbing gods, Alex. We're talking about the silent giant in the corner of your garage or basement, the water heater.
Oh, the thing everyone ignores until they're standing in a cold shower at 6 a.m. screaming like a toddler.
Exactly. It's the ultimate out of sight, out of mind appliance. But here's the thing nobody tells you. A water heater is basically a slow motion bomb or a slow motion flood waiting to happen if you don't treat it right. I spent my Saturday morning ankle deep in what I call calcium slushy because I neglected my own advice. Asked me how I know that a floor drain can only handle so much sediment at once.
Wait, calcium slushy? That sounds like something you'd find at a very depressing convenience store. What are we actually talking about today? Maintenance, replacement, or just you venting about your wet shop vac?
All of the above. We're going deep on maintenance because a little work every 6 to 12 months can double the life of the unit. But we're also going to talk about when to call it quits and how to swap one out yourself, specifically electric tanks. Because you can save about 800 bucks in labor if you've got a couple of pipe wrenches and some patience.
800 bucks? Okay, I'm listening. But before we get to the saving money part, let's talk about the preventing the explosion part. You mentioned sediment. Is that what killed your weekend?
It is. See, most people think a water heater is just a big tea kettle. But in places with hard water, like what we deal with here, minerals like calcium and magnesium settle out of the water as it heats. They fall to the bottom of the tank. Over time, that layer of sediment gets thicker and thicker. If you have a gas heater, that sediment sits right on top of the burner.
So it's like trying to boil water through a brick?
Precisely. The burner has to work twice as hard, it stresses the metal, and eventually, the bottom of your tank burns out. On an electric unit, the sediment can actually bury the lower heating element and burn it out. If you hear your water heater making banging or rumbling sounds, like there are rocks inside, that's not a ghost. That's sediment.
Okay, so how do we get the rocks out? You mentioned a pressure flush. That sounds intense.
It's actually pretty satisfying. You need a garden hose and a little bravery. First rule of DIY plumbing: know where your shutoffs are. For a gas heater, turn it to pilot or vacation mode so the burner doesn't kick on while the tank is empty. For electric, Alex, this is the one where people mess up.
Let me guess. You turn off the power at the breaker?
Yes, and you don't just think it's off. You use a non-contact voltage tester. Because if you drain an electric water heater and those elements are still getting power, they will dry fire. They'll burn out in about 30 seconds because there's no water to pull the heat away. Ask me how I know how much a replacement element costs at 9 p.m. on a Sunday.
I'm sensing a theme here. So, power's off, gas is down. Now what?
You hook the hose to the drain valve at the bottom, run it to a floor drain. Now, the pro tip here from guys like Roger Wakefield, who's a master at this, is the pressure flush. Most people turn the water off first. Don't do that yet. Keep the cold water inlet on and open that drain valve for about 2 minutes. The pressure of the incoming water stirs up that sediment at the bottom and blasts it out the hose.
Wait, hold on. If I keep the pressure on, aren't I just spraying water everywhere?
Only if your hose isn't tight. Secure that hose in the drain with a brick or something heavy. If that hose kicks out, you're power washing your basement with 140-degree calcium water. Once you've done that for a few minutes, then you shut off the water intake and open a hot water faucet somewhere in the house, like a laundry sink.
Why the faucet?
It breaks the vacuum. It's like putting your finger over the end of a straw. If you don't let air in, the water won't come out. Once that's open, the tank drains by gravity.
Okay, so we've flushed the rocks out. Is that it? Are we good for another 10 years?
Not even close. There's a component in there that most homeowners don't even know exists, and it's the most important part of the tank. It's called the anode rod.
Sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. What does the anode rod actually do?
It's the sacrificial lamb of your plumbing system. It's a long rod made of magnesium or aluminum wrapped around a steel core. It hangs down inside the tank. Because of some basic chemistry, electrolysis, the water will attack the anode rod instead of attacking the steel walls of your tank.
So the rod literally dies so the tank can live.
Exactly. But once that rod is eaten away, which usually happens every 3 to 5 years, the water starts eating your tank. That's when you get rust. That's when the bottom falls out. Most people never check them, but if you spend $30 on a new rod every few years, your 10-year water heater might last 25.
Okay, but how do I get a 6-foot rod out of a tank when the ceiling is only 7 feet high?
You're learning, Alex. That's the gotcha. If you don't have the clearance, they actually sell segmented anode rods that look like a string of sausages so you can feed them in bit by bit. You'll need a 1/1/16 inch socket and probably a big breaker bar or an impact driver. Those things are in there tight.
This is starting to sound like a lot of work for a Saturday. What happens if I just don't? When do I know it's time to stop maintaining and start replacing?
If you see a puddle under the tank, or if you see rust streaks coming down the side, the clock has hit 0. There is no fixing a leaking tank. The inner lining is breached. At that point, you're an hour away from your basement becoming an indoor swimming pool.
Which brings us to the $800 question. Is replacing it a DIY job, or am I going to flood my neighborhood?
If you have an electric tank and you're replacing it with another electric tank in the same spot, it's totally doable. Gas is a different story. I don't recommend DIYers mess with gas lines or exhaust flues because, frankly, I like our listeners alive. Carbon monoxide is a bad way to end a weekend.
Fair point. Stick to the electric stuff for now. What's the first step, aside from the obvious turn off the power?
Measure everything: height, diameter, and especially the wiring. You want to look at the data plate on your old unit. It'll tell you the gallon capacity and the wattage. Don't just assume a 50-gallon tank is the same size it was 10 years ago. Insulation requirements have changed, and modern tanks are often fatter than the old ones.
Fatter, like me after the holidays. So I get the new tank home. It's heavy, right?
Oh, it's a beast. 150 pounds easy, empty. Get a helper. Use an appliance dolly. And please, for the love of your lower back, don't try to bear hug it down the basement stairs.
I'm picturing you doing exactly that.
No comment. Once you get the old one out, it's a matter of plumbing it back in. Most modern installations use flexible water heater connectors, which are basically giant braided steel hoses. They make it much easier to line things up than the old school rigid copper pipes. But you still need to know how to use Teflon tape and pipe dope.
Okay, let's talk about the big safety valve, the one with the little silver lever on top. The T&P valve?
That is the most important safety device in your home. It stands for temperature and pressure. If your thermostat fails and the water starts boiling, the pressure builds up. Without that valve, the tank becomes a rocket. It will literally blast through your roof.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously, there are videos of it. It's terrifying. When you install a new heater, it usually comes with a T&P valve, but you have to make sure the discharge pipe is installed correctly. It needs to run down toward the floor, usually within 6 inches of the ground. So if it does blow off, it doesn't spray scalding steam into your face.
That's a very vivid image, Tiger. Thank you for that.
Hey, I'm here to help. Now, once you've got the pipes hooked up and the wiring done, green to green, black to black, there is one cardinal rule. This is the mistake that kills the most DIY projects. You cannot, under any circumstances, turn the power on yet.
Because
You have to fill the tank first. You open the cold water valve, let it fill, and then go to a faucet in the house and turn on the hot side. At first, it'll just sputter and hiss as the air comes out. Once you have a steady stream of water, then, and only then, can you flip the breaker.
because of the dry fire thing you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. If those elements aren't submerged in water, they'll glow red hot and snap in seconds. It's a very expensive pop sound.
Okay, let's talk options. While I'm at the store, I'm seeing these tankless units. They're small, they look cool, they promise endless hot water. Why wouldn't I just do that?
Tankless is great, but here's the thing. Nobody tells you. It's rarely a drop-in replacement. An electric tankless unit pulls an insane amount of power. We're talking about needing 3 or 4 40-amp breakers. Most older homes don't have enough room in the electrical panel for that. And for gas tankless, you usually have to upscale the gas line from a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch and install special venting.
So it's not just a weekend swap. It's a call an electrician and a plumber, and maybe a structural engineer job.
Mostly. If you're building a new house, go for it. If you're replacing a tank in a 1970s ranch, stick to a tank. Or, if you want to get fancy, look at a hybrid heat pump water heater. They're twice as expensive up front, but they're incredibly efficient. They basically work like a refrigerator in reverse, pulling heat from the air and putting it into the water.
Do they actually work?
They do, but they have quirks. They're noisy, they have a fan like an air conditioner, and they blow out cold air. So if you put it in a small closet in your hallway, that hallway is going to be chilly all winter. But in a basement or a garage, they're fantastic. And there are usually huge tax credits for them.
All right, so let's recap for the guy standing in his basement right now, looking at a 12-year-old tank and wondering if he should be worried. What's the checklist?
1, check the age. If it's over 10 years old, you're on borrowed time. 2, look for rust or leaks. 3, if it's still healthy, do a flush. Get that sediment out. 4, check the T&P valve. Lift the lever briefly. Water should flow and then stop completely when you close it. If it keeps dripping, the valve is bad. Replace it. It's a $15 part.
And the anode rod.
Check it every 3 years. If it looks like a rusted wire, replace it. It's the cheapest insurance policy you'll ever buy.
You know, it's funny. We spend all this time talking about fancy woodworking tools or welders, but at the end of the day, the most important tool in the shop might be the one that lets you take a warm shower after a day of getting covered in sawdust.
Isn't that the truth? There's no dignity in a cold shower, Alex. Trust me. Here's the big takeaway for today. Your home is a system. You can't just build the pretty stuff on top and ignore the mechanicals underneath. A little bit of unpleasant maintenance, the kind where you're kneeling on a concrete floor with a garden hose, is what saves you from the disaster stories later. It's about taking ownership of the gear that takes care of you.
Well said. Just maybe dry your shop vac out before you bring it back upstairs. The damp basement smell is starting to travel.
Noted. Also, don't drink the water that comes out of the bottom of the tank during a flush.
Tiger, why would you even say that?
Ask me how I know.
On that note, thanks for joining us in the den. We'll see you next time.
Stay warm, folks, and keep those rods sacrificial.